Well, thank you everybody for coming to the mobile home taxation title task force. We are winding down toward the end of this. We have in the email we sent out yesterday, we have a draft report. It is still very, very rough. And we have until the 1st of October to get it all polished up. We found some additional resources since the last meeting, and I kind of want to touch real quickly on those. The staff has also met with the AG's office to kind of walk through some of the stuff too. And I want to set the priority for this next push to the end here as we get busy, or as we get close to the 1st of October. So first of all, thank you again for your participation and your volunteering for this task force. We really do appreciate your time. I've learned a lot so far on the way this process works, and I hope that we can push through here and get a final report to the Legislative Committee on Taxation that we are required to do by the 1st of October. With that said, I kind of want to summarize, and Harlan and Michelle, if you guys want to jump in, kind of summarize some of the resources that we found in that, and I think we have added them to the website. Let me open that browser real quick.
I've got it, Tom.
Cool. Oh, and Michelle put the draft report link in there too for those that need it. What we found, and it came out of the discussions at the last meeting, were two things. One, and I told Bridget this yesterday, that I actually called my treasurer at Elbert County and I said, hey, walk me through this a little bit. And she said, well, you really need to be talking to Bridget. And I said, yeah, I want to talk to you first, Sherry. So we walked through that, and she helped me quite a bit. And on their website is actually reference to HB 241056, the issuance of treasurer's deeds that was signed into law, and it takes care of the distraint sales for real property. And so that is pretty good guidance, I think, on how that legislature and subsequent statute change take care of returning the excess value, or as they call it in the bill, the overbid amount, back to the original property owner. But what it doesn't cover is a lot of details on the mobile home process, which is the reason for this bill, right, that we're dealing with today. And then I think it was somebody in the last meeting also mentioned the bill that did not get passed. And I think some of the elements were incorporated into this bill, and that was Senate Bill 24097. And that was the property tax distract sale of mobile homes. And so I think that was an attempt to do something very similar to HB 1056 for mobile homes. And I think the interested parties around the bills, I think it got transferred over into Senate Bill 24183, which is where we are today. So we took a look at those, and I recommend that you also click on those links on the website and read through those bills. We are to the point where we have to determine the priorities that we want to, but Harlan, I think you mentioned that while one of the issues we have to deal with, sorry, let me back up. One of the issues we have to deal with is that mobile homes are not considered, if they're not If the title's not purged and they're not permanently attached, affixed to the land, then they are considered personal property. And so how do we deal with the tax lien sale and the transfer of the title to the investor who buys the tax lien, and how that property is, or that personal property is eventually transferred to the new owner with no value assessed to it, because they're not going through a sale. They're not going through an auction. And that is the difficult part that legislator asked us to help resolve. Which gets me to the point where I want to reemphasize to everybody that the way I read Senate Bill 24-183 is that our primary purpose in this report is to resolve or recommend legislative changes that align us with the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Tyler versus Hennepin County on the distressed sale of property, and how do we avoid a illegal taking of personal property by the government, whether it's state, county. In this situation, we're dealing with counties, right? So that is where we are. I think that is the primary purpose of the report of the project. The other things that we've done and we've discussed and that are listed in the bill, I think were asked for to be in the report, but they didn't ask us to resolve those issues. I think it is fair to say that we want to make sure everybody's opinion is heard on some of these issues. But and then again, the other task is the mobile home title scope of work being put together by OIT. And we know that is not going to be done before this report is due. And that's important. And I think that's another piece of the legislation that they wanted to get complete. But what I want to, so where I think we are is, I think we need to all come into agreement that the primary purpose is to resolve Tyler versus Hennepin for mobile homes and come up with some recommendations to do that. And make sure that everybody's voice is heard on the other issues, on fairness, length of time, maybe to also take a look at the $28,000 exemption. Should it be higher? I think we can address all those things. But I hope that we can come to consensus before our next meeting, and we just have and we'll have to do a lot of work by email to get there, I think, but I think we will try to do that. And with that, I want to turn it over to our chair, Bridget, and kind of see if you have some thoughts on that too.
Yeah. Hey, thanks everybody. No, I think you did a really good summary. I really wanted to get clear on exactly what you just detailed is this task force here to find a solution for mobile homes that aligns with the Tyler Hennepin? Because I think after sending the survey out to the Treasurers Association, there was some confusion about why we were having this task force, and that the task force purpose was to find a whole new solution for mobile homes, like remove them from the treasurer's world and treat them like they were treated in terms of, getting tags on these mobile homes, manufactured homes. We really need to be calling them that. And taking it that way so that we completely eliminate this whole issue of taking them to sale and having them transfer ownership due to just a year of delinquent tax. So I think I'm pretty clear now that that's not what our task force is for. And I don't know when I can communicate that to the team because I'm not or to the Treasurers Association because I'm not entirely sure what we're allowed to share at this point. So I do agree with you, Sam, that we've got a lot to do in the next couple weeks, and we are probably going to have to do this via email. So now that we're clear on it, I did read the survey results. They're very interesting and diverse, and some really great ideas in there. But again, many of them don't align with our objective of this task force, and that's to make sure that manufactured homes are not being transferred the way that they are now. Does anybody have thoughts on that? There's a question.
Jack?
Hi there. First, I want to just thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Sam and Michelle, and for everyone who's put in a lot of hard work on getting us where we are at this point. I know that it's in addition to the duties that you're already doing, and it's probably been a lot of time, so I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate this discussion around clarifying what our core responsibilities are. But I guess to start with, one thing that we've never explicitly discussed as a group is what our decision-making process will look like. Are we voting and trying to arrive at recommendations through popular consensus, or do we want a report that reflects the diversity of perspectives and just notes where there is consensus, relatively speaking, and where there are disagreements? And we haven't fully fleshed out how we're going to arrive, I think, at a final report. But I will just speak briefly on behalf of Colorado Poverty Law Project and say that we were excited about this task force and about Senate Bill 183 that created this, in part because it does go a little bit broader and it invites recommendations generally around taxation and titling. I think if all we did was recommend the bare minimum to comply with Tyler v. Hennepin, that could be done through Senate Bill 97, which just simply ensures a return of that excess profit after a distraint sale. I would be disappointed if that's all we recommended in our report. And I guess my hope is that we will also just urge general equity so that those whose manufactured homes are titled as personal property have the same redemption rights and opportunities as those who are titled as real property, which in practice would mean 3-year redemption, 9 years for people with legal disabilities. I think we may need to clarify statute to align with current practice around what is required to redeem. So just the tax debt plus cost and interest, but not any excess profit. That sounds like it's current practice, but it's not super clear in the statute. And then lastly, yeah, and this may be a softer recommendation, but I do think we should pay attention to the Attorney General's report, their memorandum, noting a lack of sufficient notice, that people are not receiving proper notice that they are even delinquent on their taxes. And I think in my survey response, I talked about multilingual access or outreach. This is all to say that I am hoping that we will consider some of these recommendations that I think are within our scope, but strictly speaking are not required to comply with Tyler v. Hennepin. I just think they're important as a matter of equity and as a matter of policy. And I think it is within our charge. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I love it. I do all of that. I get that. Do you have any other thoughts?
Dan?
I put a link in the chat. Today we discovered that New Hampshire titles mobile homes as real property. And so my thought is if mobile homes were titled as real property, then that would fall under the other legal things that the legislature has passed to meet Hennepin. And so could that simplify it? And would it also simplify all the issues that people have to go through in government for the titling process and everything? I know that it does provide an additional benefit for the owner of the mobile home, and that it's easier for them to get loans on real property than it is on personal property, and at a better interest rate.
Yeah, thank you for that. Something like that was written up in that summary that Sam put together, making mobile homes like reclassifying them as real property. So that is in one of those. I don't know who wrote it, because I don't think that's in there, but it is one of those 7, or is it 7, Sam? 7 items that you put together
Yes, ma'am.
for the summary? Yeah. So that's in there. Increasing the exemption amount is in there. Just not even treating them, saying that they really don't even qualify that they're a completely different type of property, and therefore can't have ownership transferred in the way that we're doing it now. I think there's some language in there. So if you haven't already read that document that Sam sent, I would recommend that, because there is some language in there around all of that.
Okay, I had missed that part of it. Okay.
I think
And
it just went out,
Yeah.
early today, Sam, or
Oh, I think it went out yesterday, but
yesterday? Okay.
and I do want to include that summary as a part of the final report for whoever's going to get a copy of this. I think,
Okay.
Michael, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Michael, you're muted.
Hi, thanks. And thanks again for all the work put into this report. And I have to admit that I only had a little bit of time to get to it right before the meeting, so I haven't been able to get through all of the summary from the survey. At least in terms of the task force goals and the fact that we have today and I think the next meeting basically to finalize everything. I think Sam's point that we need to focus on the basically the takings issue as a fundamental is right, and I wanted to also just point out, at least from my own sense, that it seems to me that there's a step in the process of the lien where the lien holder can then acquire title to the home if the tax is not paid. And that's the fundamental step that I'm seeing that we need to address, and that at least in some language that points to that being the appropriate statutory language or whatever. I don't know what that is yet, so I don't know what provides the lien holder with the ability to acquire title, and that's where I was hoping we would go this meeting. So in agreement with Sam, I think this is where we should focus most of our efforts, just because that's the primary cause, I think, for the task force. But in agreement with Jack, I think that there is quite a lot of just rethinking of the way that mobile homes, manufactured homes are taxed, and I am very much in support of the suggestions that Jack has provided. I have a hard time seeing us as a committee getting through all of this, and having a realistic consensus as a recommendation as to whether to move forward with Jack's proposals. I would love it if everybody was on board with them, and it was an easy pass. But I see that as potentially a large discussion to come. And so my sense is that we would be well served if we could recommend that there be a larger overhaul of the way manufactured homes are taxed, without actually specifying as a task force ourselves what that looks like. So I'm hoping in the language of the report we can build a way of making some of these changes go forward without us doing it by October 1st, because I don't see that as a realistic deadline for us to come up with recommendations.
Yeah, and Tawny, I see your hand up, and we'll come to you in just a second. And I don't disagree with anything anybody has said so far. It is a huge task and a complex issue, and for us to get everything done by the 1st of October is just too much, right? Should we in the report actually recommend that these discussions be continued, and this work that we have done here has identified some opportunities for future work and consideration in the overall scheme of protecting a important segment of workforce housing and affordable housing in communities across the state. Tawny?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm really echoing what a lot of you are saying. I think that our priority needs to be doing what the bill is telling us to do and not to expand our authority. I think we can make recommendations to expand, I guess, recommendations. But I think that we really just need to focus on, I think it's the 2 items that are in the bill. The one is the taxation piece and the Tyler versus Hennepin decision. And then also the IT piece where they were looking at what it would cost. Is that correct? To create the new titling system. I think that the other items are important, but I think that maybe the group can include them in the report, that they need to be looked into, further, because we've become aware of other things that would benefit being changed. So sorry, all of a sudden I'm like scrambling, but I think that because we have such a limited amount of time, we just need to focus on what the bill is telling us to do and not broadening our authority.
Thank you, Tawny.
Yes, good point.
And I'm not sure I need to raise my own hand, but Bridget, what I was thinking with respect to Jack asked a very good process question, and I didn't want to lose track of the process to come to consensus or come to consensus with dissent. I think we can do it almost any way we want. There is no guidance here, Jack. What I think we should do is what I would hope that the goal of today is to have that direction so that I can then move forward, and then we can see how we want to say that, while and I'm not going to draft the language here and stutter my way through it with the group, but is to say, hey, this would fix Tyler versus Hennepin, but there are certain segments that say that doesn't go far enough to fix the issue from for this segment of housing, right? With the $28,000 being too low a threshold, with 1 year being too less of a notification, looking further into the notification issues as they craft legislation possibly, and realizing that it's a second language. English is a second language for some. I mean, I think we can make all that, and if there's just a flat out dissent, I think we just have to put that in there too. But I think we can craft a response that is, yes, this asks what you did, but B, if we had more time and more resources, that we could make it even better. But I think they want to act on something on the Tyler versus Hennepin issue in the upcoming session. And that's why we have to get our report done by the 1st of October. There's no possibility to delay that because they are on a set schedule on providing draft legislation for the session that will start in January. Jack, does that make sense?
It does, yeah. That sounds like a great approach. I understand that the core objective is ensuring we're not out of federal compliance, and appreciate there being space for noting some of the other areas where we would urge stronger consideration. So thank you.
And Tawny, with respect to what you said, I think if we have other recommendations also, then I think we can we'll send this report around a few more times for everybody to make comments, or say, is there a better way to word it, or to say, you know, this wasn't an entire task force recommendation. This was came from the mobile homeowners and the interest groups who serve them. And this came from the park owners, and this is the way that they think there's some opportunities to be explored in the future too. So we can word that. Dan, I think you raised your hand again.
Yes, thank you. I looked at the draft that you had sent out, and it talks about real and personal property. But I guess what I was trying to make clear was that what if it were an option for the legislature to make all mobile homes and manufactured homes the same category as real property? Now, I don't know anything about the IT side, and I don't know what issues that could bring in, but I think that is a possibility of something for us to look at.
Dan, I think we can certainly say that is something that legislature could consider. I don't know that we have enough group, and I don't know if I have enough time for legal to really say what all changes that would need to be made to statute, because I think that is it's not a bad. I understand the suggestion. I'm just not sure that we can get there, but I don't know if it needs to be an option or just part of the report that could be a consideration going forward.
Thank you.
I know there's been some discussion with personal property law, and I think it's called chattel. And I am not sure I have up to speed. I'm up to speed on that, or can get bandwidth to get that done.
This is County Commissioner Stan Vanderwerf. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. My apologies for interrupting, but I'm actually on the phone line, and I don't think I've got any way to raise a hand so you can call me. So if you have a minute, I've got a couple of comments as well.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
I also spoke with our league. I'm the county commissioner for El Paso County, and I spoke with our council and our clerk and recorder and treasurer, and there were a couple of interesting comments that they made. I think where you're going to make sure we're in the proper scope is appropriate, but they actually also recommended, like every state is trying to deal with this Supreme Court case, Tyler and Hennepin. And if you discussed this before and I missed it, I apologize, but just wondering if we could do a little research to see if there's anything that we can find about how other states are trying to treat this Supreme Court case that might give us some good ideas. So I wanted to offer that. And then the other comment I'd like to make, but I think it's going to be consistent with other comments here, even if we might keep our scope just on that one issue. This is a complex issue. I've heard several people mention it. The team in my county has said exactly the same thing, and it's very confusing for everybody because there's a lot of state agencies involved. So this is hard on the public agencies that are involved with this, and this is also hard on the owners of these properties, whether they be titled or deeded. So even if we might just fix the Supreme Court case, how we deal with that, something should be recommended about continuing to do research on this, predominantly for the purposes of just reducing the burdens on everybody, both on the implementing side and the client side, because everybody suffers from the complications of this. So that it really truly is something that the legislature should try to tackle in the future. So those are the two comments I got from my team in El Paso County, and I wanted to just relay those.
Commissioner, thank you very much for that. I know when we were looking at a couple things. One was, could we go out and see how other states are doing it? And I asked the AG office to do a quick search. And it really comes down to how their statutes are written, right? Because every state has their own set of statutes around property, and we also had that OAG letter, opinion letter on who had done some statutory review of our statutes with respect specifically to Tyler versus Hennepin. So we think we're on top of that piece of it. It's very similar to what Dan was talking about with respect to New Hampshire, how they are classifying everything in a mobile home as real property. We would have to take a look at all of our statutes on property to see how that Colorado statute, because our statute is different from New Hampshire statute, right? The other thing that you mentioned is the title versus deeded. And the way I understand that, and I'm going to put Harlan on the spot here in just a second, and Tony, I still see your hand up, is that 1056 fixes the mobile home where the title's been purged and it's a part of a deed. And so
Yes.
my understanding is that has been fixed for the manufactured housing piece of it. Where we still have a hole is what to do with the manufactured homes that are on a leased or rented lot, and how we do that. And right now, it is my understanding that no county that we know of is doing a distraint sale or an auction of a mobile home. There's auctioning tax liens, so there's really no assessed value, but those tax liens can be end up with a title transfer, and that might be the issue. So Harlan, did you want to touch base on whether you think the 1056 takes care of the purge title to land that's...
Sam, can I just interject one thing?
Please go ahead.
Okay, so you said no counties are distraining. I do think they are distraining. That isn't happening this year, but we cannot take a manufactured home to tax sale unless it's gone through that distraint process. So
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, so it does have to be distrained, and then that means it gets out, it does get advertised. There are multiple efforts in hopefully in every county in multiple languages based on that county, but they do have to be distrained before they can go to tax sale. Even though they go to tax sale, in Adams, in Larimer, and in Weld, I can speak to those three. We just don't open it up to investors. So we strike those liens to the county. So at this point, the county is the lien holder, and that's the time that we take to work on identifying if indeed there's an ownership discrepancy, like maybe who we're sending notices to doesn't even own it anymore. So that gives us the time to find the owner and get that title corrected and into their name. So that's kind of our objective with that. But I just wanted to clarify on that distraint piece.
Thank you so much. Tony, let's jump to you.
I just want to clarify that you called my name and not Harlan.
Well, I called Harlan too, but
Okay.
you've had your hand up for a while.
No problem. Well, so I just wanted to add something specific to Dan's suggestion of changing everything from personal property to real property. Probably a decade or so ago, there were conversations around that. And at the time, I also thought that was a great idea. But when I started asking why there was not more support for that from the industry perspective, what was explained to me was if every manufactured home, mobile home, whatever, that is currently titled as personal property is now, per Colorado state law, recognized as real property, the lenders will exit the state. And so I think that conversation is probably more of a separate conversation, maybe a bigger picture conversation that's going to take some time to make sure that we don't lose all the lenders, because that's not going to help anybody. That's going to hurt every single person that's trying to buy a home. And it could actually impact the communities that have financing on their communities if all of a sudden all those homes in that community are recognized as real property. So I just want to ask everybody to pump the brakes on that idea. I'm not saying it's a terrible idea. I'm just saying a decade or so ago, when I started asking about it and trying to understand why, there are no other states except I think New Hampshire that will title them that way. That's the reason, because we will lose all the financing that these folks benefit from. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Tony.
That's good to know. Yeah.
And now I'm going to put Harlan back on the spotlight, Bridget, if that's okay. Harlan?
Oh yeah, let's do it, Harlan.
Hey, Tim. My understanding of the legal landscape aligns with your understanding of what you said there, Sam. So obviously we have issues under Tyler if the mobile home is sold or title to the mobile home is transferred in the real property world here without the value of that home going back to the homeowner, or the excess value of that home going back to the homeowner. So if we're in the real property world, so if the mobile home has been affixed to the ground and they've gone through the process of converting the mobile home to real property, then the new statute 24-1056 takes care of that issue.
That's right.
So really the issue that I see for the task force here is the tax lien process, where then there can be a certificate of ownership issued to whoever the holder of the lien is, whether that's a county, whether that's a private investor, whoever. Because in that scenario, that's where the value of the home is going over to somebody else without a process for that homeowner to get that extra overbid amount. There's not really the same issue with the distraint sale, because the value of the mobile home, whether it's the real value or not, is determined during the course of that sale.
When you say distraint sale, you're talking about the tax lien sale?
Or the sale of the mobile home itself. So the problem with
we-
the tax, or go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so Treasurer World, I'm only speaking for treasurers. So, we don't sell mobile homes, right? So we take the delinquent tax, just the lien to sale. That's where the investor comes in. In this case, the county is the investor, so it's all good. But yeah, we don't actually sell the home. We transfer the ownership based on that 1 year redemption. So that if we were just trying to make all things equal, this is how real property is handled through 1056. And we need a process. If we just wanted to have the exact same process for manufactured homes, then I think what we're saying is, and it's in that summary, that we would have a 3-year redemption period, and then we would have the sale of the mobile home, right? Which then produces, in theory, overbid, like foreclosures and like we're doing now for real tax lien sales. So if all things are equal, that feels like the road we would go down. We would extend the redemption period, and then at that 3-year mark, if the homeowner has not paid the taxes, then we would auction the manufactured home, and all excess overbid proceeds would go to the owner. I guess maybe just my experience is sometimes part of the problem is we don't know who the owner is, because whoever's the owner of record isn't necessarily accurate, because those titles are not being updated. So I would be nervous in that respect, because it would be a whole different issue if we're giving overbid funds to the wrong person. So to keep that in the back of your mind, but just throwing that out there, if that's our objective, is to make it look like real property, then that's what we would be doing. But it does come with some additional challenges.
And I'll just add to that, that is certainly a route that the task force can take. I think there's many different ways to determine what the value of the mobile home would be. I think one of the cleanest and easiest ways to do that is through a sale like that. But there's ways that this task force, the General Assembly, could be creative in determining the value of a mobile home. And that's not implicated in Tyler. It's just getting that excess value to the homeowner some way. The only other thing I will add is the real property process doesn't automatically give the money to the homeowner or to the owner of the real property. There's basically it requires the homeowner to reach out to the county to actually do something affirmative to do that. So that could be a process here. I mean, I think that's another determination that the task force needs to make.
Oh, Bridget, I like your solution.
I mean, I'm not saying it's my solution. I'm just saying that if all things are equal, that's what it would look like if that's our objective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is fairly straightforward. Maybe we should see if anybody is opposed to that solution going forward. Otherwise, we'll start writing that up as the primary option.
Could you restate the solution? I heard a lot in there and wasn't sure I heard the full thing.
Bridget, you said it much more eloquently than I
Yeah.
could.
So again, it's not my solution. I'm just stating that if the objective, and we're all clear that our objective is to align with the Tyler versus Hennepin ruling. If all things are equal and we can't reclass mobile homes and do all of that through this committee, does it make sense to just treat them the exact same way we're treating real property now, whereas we're not transferring ownership based on delinquent tax? We are now auctioning for real property. based on House Bill 1056, we are now actually auctioning the property off. So whatever the demand is for that particular property, the delinquent taxes are paid, the fees to hold the auction are paid, and then the overbid proceeds go to the homeowner. There's some, it's not that simple as we did, there's some additional stuff, but in theory, that's how it works. So the question, I guess the thing I was trying to say is, if we're going to try to make it as equal as possible, why would we not just use that exact same approach? I don't know all the legalities of, can you take a mobile home that doesn't have a deed, it has a title, and take it to an auction and sell it based on a 3-year redemption period, if that's the way we're going, and sell it and provide the overbid monies to the property owner? I don't know if that's a thing. I don't even know if that's a thing, because we're talking about deeds versus titles. But it's just something to, maybe a place to start.
And go ahead, Michael.
Thanks. So this is headed partly in a direction that I was seeing us going, where, from what I can tell, the primary problem is the ability for the lien holder to gain title. And that's
In 12 months, yeah.
right. And that seems to me to be, at least from a common sense point of view, close to a takings of the same sort of taking real property. And so that's where we need to change the process. And then the question is if we do not allow that for the lien holder, then what's the alternative? And so it seems to me that the committee, we do have to come up with some kind of an alternative. And if we are, the easiest and the cleanest alternative we could advise is exactly what you just mentioned, was just to try and craft the nature of recouping the tax loss in the same way that is done with real property. So have it as close to parallel as possible, so that the homeowner is given similar rights, even though we're dealing with deeds and titles, and they're not exact matchups, but we're trying to do something closely similar. And so it seems to me that as a task force, our recommendation can be simply that, nix the ability for the lien holder to gain title, switch to an alternative system where we're trying to provide as close as possible to a parallel system for manufactured homes as for real property homes.
I don't even know how to raise my own hand in this meeting that I am co-hosting. So
Go ahead, Sam. Take the floor.
thank you. There's got to be a way to make it work with selling a vehicle, because the sheriff's auctions generally are selling vehicles that may have that may be titled, right? But I don't know how the sheriff's auction works. Some of the treasurers I know help out the sheriff when they do the auction, but I don't know how it works. But yeah, that is something that I think could be sorted out. Anybody here have experience on the sheriff's auctions?
I do not.
Tammy, you've got your hand.
Tammy, yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
So I don't have a lot of experience on the front side of the auctions. I see the paperwork when it comes back through. So it's certainly something I think that could happen. Those auctions could happen. I have a concern that was expressed to me by our assessor's office, and that is that mobile homes can be moved. Real property can't be moved. So when you sell a piece of property sight unseen, it's going to be there. You sell a mobile home sight unseen, it may or may not be there when they go to pick it up. So that is one concern I know that the assessor's office has about those. That, yeah, they disappear overnight, and the other thing, Bridget, I was going to ask is, with real property, there's not a minimum. All property is taxed, right? So there's not that $28,000 minimum.
That's
under that
correct.
value is not taxed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So real property doesn't have that same type of exemption. I'm going to guess there probably isn't much out there, if anything, that even falls below that 28,000 in terms of what we consider real property. But I mean, maybe the other piece, and we mentioned this earlier, is, you know, raise that exemption as well, or raise that threshold as well, because we've seen our manufactured home population that even lands on the tax roll is half now of where it used to be. So thousands have dropped off with the threshold. We don't even have to worry about those at this point. They're not even, you know, they're not on our radar now because they're not being taxed. So if the threshold was increased, and maybe something was written that it would increase in the same way that the value of property, real property, increases, we wouldn't be, you know, in a situation where we're having to sell someone's home that's worth $28,000 at this point. So the threshold is obviously part of that discussion if we want to throw that in there. But no, that exemption is not for real property. We do see that on business personal property. They have an exemption level as well. I don't know what that is right off the top of my head, but and I think there's some discussion right now about that going up. So
yeah. So I do like your apples to apples change, other than those two considerations to be kind of kept in mind there.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that they could move is definitely something we think, you know, we are aware of. It doesn't happen often. I'll tell you, it's not easy to get a manufactured home out of a park without someone noticing. I suppose it does happen, but our bigger concern as a treasurer, and I'm only speaking for me in Weld County, is just making sure that people aren't losing their homes for a very small amount of delinquent tax.
That's a good goal.
You know, so we strike it to the county, and as a result, we are not experiencing that. If I can just share for a second, I know we're running out of time, but when I was a treasurer in Adams County, one year it was really bad. We had a lot of families that were displaced, and that happens in the November timeframe because the sales are in October, November timeframe every year, and it was a very, very difficult year for me, but more importantly, more for these families that were displaced, you know, overnight. Were you going to say something, Sam? I think you might be frozen, Sam.
No,
Oh,
we may have lost him.
he dropped off. Well, it's 1:56. I don't know what else Sam wanted to add. So I'm going to guess that he's going to put some stuff together based on our conversation today. Does anybody have, Tammy, go ahead.
He talked about emailing kind of our thoughts and stuff. Maybe Michelle can answer this since Sam's not available. Do we want to send those to Sam, or do we want to send them as a group? I'm not sure how we can communicate those.
Can I jump in real quickly?
Sure.
Yes.
I would recommend that those are all sent, if we're concerned about any kind of CORA or any kind of, you know, confidentiality, I would recommend that those are individually sent to Michelle. If there's no concerns of that on your end, I think they can be sent in any manner you want.
Thank you.
Are there any last comments that we can share with Sam when he gets back on, or we can communicate with him afterwards?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Stan from El Paso.
Hi.
Hi. So since we are trying to consider options, and I think in our next meeting we're going to maybe take some options or choices, I do like the one that was mentioned earlier about treating it like real property even though it remains titled. I think that is clearly an option. And, you know, maybe we could have legal counsel kind of look into that to see if it's viable. And there were some comments made that were kind of an offshoot of that. If the lien holder were to take title, and of course this would be taking title, taking ownership, and that's where it gets in trouble with Tyler Hennepin. Could there be a second approach, and I have no idea if it's viable or not, but could there be a second approach where that lien holder does take title, but would then have an obligation to pay the overage to the original owner? So in both of the cases, at least, the overage goes back to the original owner, which that's what the Tyler Hennepin issue is. So in one case, it's sold like real property, and the other one, it goes by title to the lien holder, but then they have an obligation. And what I think might be a good idea is the possibility of just getting both of these down on paper and seeing if there's any other choices or options. And then we have a range of options to discuss in detail, maybe with some legal counsel review by the time we get to the next meeting. So that's what I would like to offer.
Okay, very good. So our next meeting, does anybody have that right off the top of their head when that next meeting is? Michelle, do you have that?
It's September 25th. Also,
September 25th?
yeah, let me confirm the time. Yeah, September 25th, also from 1 to 2 p.m. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I apologize. September 26th, Thursday, September 26th from 1 to 2 p.m.
26th. Okay. Maybe what I'll ask Sam to do, or Michelle, you and I can work on this together, is just send out an email to everybody in this group and just set the expectation of what it is that we're wanting from them via email to Sam, like maybe in the next week, so that we're not kind of going back through this again next time. So I think it was a very productive meeting. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I actually hear what everybody's saying. It all makes really good sense. I love what it is that we're trying to do. So if we don't have any other comments, we can go ahead and adjourn if that works.
Excellent. I'll stop the recording.
Thank you.